It's like I'm so desperate to get a mental break from taking care of everyone that my mind is trying to make something physically wrong with me.
The chilling words of child killer Lindsay Clancy, front and center at her murder trial.
I feel horribly guilty about my marriage. I want to connect with Pat again. I know he needs it. I need it. I'm terrified because I'm terrified of the relationship.
Diary entries hint at a troubled relationship with her then husband as rumors swirl online about Patrick Clancy himself and alleged inconsistencies in his story. Meanwhile, we hear Lindsay speak for the first time.
Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
As astonishing testimony from a family nanny has the jury taking notice.
She was a wonderful mom.
This is Scandal, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Gillespe.
This is not like Handmaid's Tale where you're going to tape them out.
I'm not doing that at all.
Major sparks in the courtroom on Friday after defense attorney Kevin Reddington alleges the prosecution was caught on a hot mic commenting on Lindsay Clancy crying. Meanwhile, jurors are getting a look inside the mind of Lindsay Clancy herself as her journal entries are read aloud for the court.
I also feel like I did it wrong because I did it when he was overtired, so I made it harder. I now have horrible insomnia and anxiety, which is causing depression. I have no appetite. I don't know what's wrong with me. I want help. I want to be well.
All this comes as Lindsay faces 3 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of her children: 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Callan Clancy. The trial has taken the world by storm for a myriad of reasons, namely the fact that Lindsay doesn't deny that she killed her kids. She admits she strangled her 3 children with exercise bands on January 24th, 2023, but her defense team has said from the jump, it's not murder. They say Lindsay was suffering from postpartum psychosis and was in the midst of a mental break at the time of their deaths. For that reason, they pleaded not guilty, saying Lindsay lacks criminal responsibility because she wasn't in the right mind at the time. And we've seen a lot happen this past week in court. For instance,
No, I don't want to go to the sidebar. I really don't want to go to the sidebar.
I need to know what you're going to talk about before.
I want to tell you that they got picked up on a hot mic saying, shut her up during the playing of that autopsy.
All right.
This is not like Handmaid's Tale where you're going to tape them out.
I'm not doing that at all. I just want to find out what the issue is. There's a lot of privileged issues.
defense attorney Kevin Reddington says he does not want to go to sidebar. He wants it on the record that the prosecution allegedly commented under their breath, shut her up, as Lindsay Clancy cried during autopsy testimony. Now, my photographer was in the courtroom for all of this. He's the one who shoots the video that you see, whether it be on Law&Crime or literally anywhere else. There's only one camera that's allowed to record video, and it's him. Now, he's been court ordered, whether there's a recess, a break, there's a sidebar, he's got to go to the seal. And as soon as a recess is called, he goes to the seal and he has to cut the audio. But the defense is now alleging that the prosecution made a comment before our photog could cut the mic. Here's the clip. So we can't say for sure what the Commonwealth said or if it was even the Commonwealth. And to be fair, their faces did look really surprised when the defense made this allegation. It's all speculation at this point. I mean, we don't know exactly who said what, but we do know the judge isn't messing around.
I just want to make it real clear that there is to be no inappropriate comments or disruptive comments to be made inside of this courtroom. If anybody is found to make those, they will be immediately escorted out and barred for the balance of this. All right, I just want to make that real clear. And just in case you're wondering, there are microphones all around. And so if I get a report of that, there's going to be some serious issues and serious problems. So I just kind of wanted to put that out for everybody so it's crystal clear. There's going to be no warnings, no yellow cards. You're out. All right, so I just kind of want to make that real clear.
NBC Boston reports the DA's office has since looked at the tape and determined it was someone saying, "Shut it off," meaning the camera. They say it wasn't even them speaking. It could have been someone else in the gallery. And that's not all the drama we saw this week. We also saw the defense getting heated on the cross-exam of first responders or medical experts who treated both Lindsay Clancy and the kids. Like this, for example.
As you sit here, you don't know what her core body temperature was?
I saw her 3 years ago. I see about 200 patients a
I'm
month.
sure you're very busy, but this is a murder trial, doctor. Did you review your records and your notes?
I'm happy to look at my record if you bring it there.
Did you review your records and notes before you came in here today to testify on this case?
Sir, I did, but I don't have a photographic memory.
The Commonwealth pushing back, highlighting what they say were Lindsay's top priorities after coming to.
We asked her, how are you feeling? Horrified. And then she wrote down, do I have an attorney?
We're going to dig into all of the court proceedings from this week, but we also can't ignore the other court. That's the court of public opinion, because this case has gone off on social media. I mean, my texts and Instagram comments, DMs have been blowing up because everyone is asking about this case and watching it. And there's a lot of public discourse surrounding the trial. For example, the shocking and unsubstantiated theory that Patrick Clancy may have actually killed the kids. People are pointing to alleged inconsistencies in his story, or the fact that his shoes and jacket seem to have changed between the trip to CVS and the drive to the 3B restaurant. Above all, there's the rumor, and I have to emphasize rumor, that Patrick Clancy was having an affair before the children were killed. A lot of people are questioning what he was doing in New York leading up to their deaths.
You mentioned that you went to New York in November of 2022. Defense counsel said that was a month before the children were killed, but that's actually 2 months before they were killed, correct?
It was, it was about a little more than 2 months.
And while I've been in the courtroom, other true crimers have been following the case online and getting the feedback of all the trial watchers who have different theories. So for the interview portion of this episode, we're sitting down with true crime TikToker Elena True Crime, who has more than 70,000 followers on TikTok and 23,000 on Instagram. You might recognize her.
Hey guys, so one of the standout moments to me, there were a couple ones. This one was a bad one, okay? In the Lindsay Clancy trial yesterday was this guy, right? Seems like a happy guy. Look at that smile. Look at that smile. Trooper Corey Mello, okay? But there was a moment, this was at the end, so you might not have seen it, that absolutely had my jaw dropped, and it was when...
We're going to sit down with Elena and talk about all of these wild rumors and whether any of them actually hold water. But first, the facts. What happened inside the courtroom this week? We heard heartbreaking testimony about 8-month-old Callan Clancy's autopsy, and jurors were shown graphic images of the procedure. Lindsay herself was taken out of the courtroom sobbing.
In terms of the marks around Callan's neck and the petechiae around his eyes and face, did that give you an indication here of the mechanism of death for Callan?
Yes, it is consistent with a ligature strangulation, given that the abrasions are linear around his neck and there are petechial hemorrhages above those lines of abrasion.
We heard from witness after witness from the medical field, whether they treated the kids or even Lindsay after her jump from the second-story window and the cuts to her wrists and neck. And here's where we started to see a pattern early on. Defense attorney Kevin Reddington was no nonsense on cross-exam, grilling the witnesses and emphasizing the severity of the circumstances. For example, a doctor at the South Shore Hospital testified Lindsay was nonverbal when she arrived. And here's what happened on cross.
She was intubated, had the tube coming out of her mouth. She's laying on the table, and you are continuing an assessment. You were the lead doctor in the emergency room for Lindsay Clancy, right?
I wouldn't say I was the lead. I think the trauma surgeon and I worked together.
Right. Her temperature, her core body temperature was 82 degrees. Is that right?
If that's what the record states, then yes.
I'm sorry?
If that's what her medical record states, then
Well,
yes.
as you sit here, you don't know what her core body temperature was?
I saw her 3 years ago. I see about 200 patients a
I'm
month.
sure you're very busy, but this is a murder trial, doctor. Did you review your records and your notes?
I'm happy to look at my record if you bring it there.
Did you review your records and notes before you came in here today to testify on this case?
Sir, I did, but I don't have a photographic memory.
Here's another example of that passion when a forensic psychiatrist was called to the stand.
So in any event, you know that she was insomnia, you know that there was a significant period of time that she was suffering from insomnia, you knew that she was expressing suicidal ideation. How about homicidal ideation? Did she express that?
Not from my review of the records.
Okay, would that be indicative of a person that could be in psychosis expressing concerns about homicidal ideation?
No, overall, allow it.
Sorry, I don't know that question. Could you repeat that question?
Sure. Is that one of the factors that one would be concerned about as a psychiatrist if a person was expressing homicidal ideation?
I would be concerned about that as a psychiatrist.
And in fact, in this case, you knew at least about the suicidal ideation that she had been expressing, right?
Yes.
But you didn't know about any homicidal ideation she was expressing, right?
From the records or
prior
from...
to coming to see you for 20 minutes?
I knew that there was an event that had occurred and that...
3 children died. That's the event you're referring to, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Next question.
Do you have any memory of any police officers being outside the room where she was laying in that bed?
I knew she was in custody, and generally in custody...
No, not generally. Let's talk about Lindsay Clancy.
I can't recall.
Okay. Did you know that she couldn't even have visitors in the sense that the police would not even let her mother or father visit with her?
I can't recall.
Did you know that when you were dealing with her, was she handcuffed to the side of the gurney or the stretcher?
She had a soft restraint, according to my documentation.
Soft restraints, okay.
Yes.
Did you have any conversation with the police at all?
No.
And after you spoke to her for 20 minutes, that really ended your involvement with Lindsay Clancy until today, right?
That is correct.
Later, a witness seems to make an objection on her own behalf. The defense asked General Surgeon Dr. Christina Carpio about Lindsay's low body temperature and the treatment to correct it.
Did you know that she had to have massive transfusions right after being brought to the hospital in Boston?
No.
About 3 minutes later, jurors heard this exchange.
As far as being hypertensive, did you know that when she finally hit the Boston hospital that she had massive transfusion of blood?
I thought I asked and answered.
Oh, did you?
You asked me before and I answered that no, I did not know that.
Okay. So how about, did you know that they introduced pleural tubes in both sides of her chest and removed many, many cc's of blood from both the right and left pleural cavity?
No, I just object to the line of questioning. The witness has already indicated she hasn't reviewed those records. She's not aware of what happened at the Brigham. Go through each and every injury is not necessary.
No, she can answer that.
No, I do not know that about the patient when she was not at South Shore Hospital.
The way the Commonwealth called the witnesses seems to be to construct a timeline. Lindsay was first taken to the South Shore Hospital in Weymouth after the jump and slit of her wrists and throat. But it was quickly determined her injuries were just too severe and she needed to be transported to Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. Once there, she received immediate care and observation.
Were you aware that she was on what's called a 1-to-1?
Yes.
What does that mean?
That means patient usually can't be left alone, and also depending, you always have to have somebody outside the room to monitor the patient.
And is that because that patient has been identified as a potential suicide risk?
Yes.
She was first treated on January 24th, 2023, and by January 26th, she was finally able to communicate. And this is something the Commonwealth highlighted.
While she was still intubated, did you have a system that you could use to communicate with her?
Yes, board. We have a whiteboard or clipboard that sometimes patients can write on.
Did you observe her to utilize that whiteboard to write on it?
Yes.
And at this point, when she's writing on the board, her eyes are open and she's responsive.
Yes.
And she's able to tell you how she's feeling, correct?
Yes.
And fair to say she used that whiteboard to tell you she was confused and that she couldn't feel her lower extremities.
Yes.
On this particular night, the second, she made a request of you for her lawyer, correct?
Yes.
Was that something she had asked you before?
No.
And so did you think it was something worth noting?
Yes.
Why would you note something like that?
Because that was the first time she referred to anything going on with the case. Or
Okay, and so you had the occasion after she was extubated to have some casual conversation with her, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this was not a conversation you'd had before?
No.
What did you do when she made that request? What was your response?
I sent what we call a consult to the social worker in order to coordinate reaching out to her lawyer.
The Commonwealth pointed out during this time, Lindsay also asked for a change in her healthcare proxy.
Yeah, she was saying that her parents are quite supportive to her, and that she was thinking that she would have to change her healthcare proxy from her husband to somebody else. And we didn't necessarily go into the reasons as to, why she would have to change it, but she explained that she was very close with her parents. They would see each other frequently, given that they lived in close geographic proximity, and that she felt that they were very supportive to her and would have her best interests in mind should we need to invoke the healthcare proxy, or that if she couldn't make her own medical decisions.
So was there a concern on her part that her husband wouldn't have her best interests in mind at that point in time?
Sustained.
The defense used this opportunity to point out Lindsay's request for a DNR.
You made reference to the fact that she was changing her documents as far as healthcare proxy.
Yes.
Did you know anything? Did you know who she was changing it from, her husband to her mother and father, or did you know anything about the specifics?
She was changing it from Patrick to her parents.
Thank you. And finally, what is a DNR?
DNR means do not resuscitate.
Do you know what her DNR was?
Her code status was full at the time that I took care of her.
Do you recall that she had indicated repeatedly that she wanted a DNR, that she did not want to be resuscitated if emergency arose?
I was not privy to that knowledge.
And just a note, this cross-exam of this witness reminded me of a specific soundbite from opening statements.
Didn't want to be resuscitated, wanted to die. To this day wants to die.
The defense has done a great job of countering the Commonwealth. They allege Lindsay was of sound mind at the time of these alleged murders, citing that she sounded normal on the phone when she called for takeout and that Patrick wasn't concerned leaving her home alone. But the defense asked the prosecution's own witness about postpartum psychosis, and the response is important.
You're familiar with the concept of postpartum psychosis, correct?
Yes.
And you know that people can communicate and plan and act on plans, even if they're in the middle of a psychosis, right?
Yes.
You don't have to be drooling and stumbling and unable to walk and talk to be in a psychosis, do you?
No.
So in other words, a person can be in a psychosis and can communicate to friends, family, people, talk, correct?
The defense has long pointed to postpartum psychosis and an alleged cocktail of medications that Lindsay was prescribed leading up to the children's deaths. And this was talked about at length this week, and a multitude of records were shown as exhibits. If you want to see exactly what the jury is seeing, taking a deeper dive into all the exhibits and documents, we've got just the place. Because behind every major scandal is a paper trail the public rarely gets to see. If you haven't heard yet, you can go beyond the headlines with case files on the Law&Crime Plus app. This is where you get direct access to the raw evidence, uncensored body cam recordings, crime scene images, video recordings of interrogations, and so much more. You can analyze the facts and uncover the truth for yourself. Plus, you get ad-free streaming of all your favorite law and crime and court TV shows. Unlock the evidence room today. Head over to lawandcrimeplus.com, enter promo code SCANDAL, and start your 30-day free trial. And while you look at those documents, I want you to listen to this witness who describes some of the medication found in Lindsay's blood at the time.
Would you agree with me that one of the things that her blood reflected or that she was on was trazodone?
Yes.
And can you tell me what trazodone is?
Yeah, trazodone is an antidepressant medication. It's more often utilized as a sleep aid because of one of the side effects is sedation. And so patients that are often having difficulty sleeping are placed on trazodone.
And you knew, as a psychiatrist, at least looking at her history, you knew that she had been seeing psychiatrists immediately prior to her suicide attempt, correct?
Correct.
And you knew that she had been prescribed a number of drugs by these various psychiatrists, correct?
Correct.
And to your knowledge, was she prescribed diazepam?
Yes.
Valium? Was she prescribed buspirone, otherwise known as Vanspar?
Yes.
How about Wellbutrin?
Yes.
And what is Wellbutrin? Is that an antidepressant?
It is an antidepressant.
Hydroxyzine. What is hydroxyzine?
It can be used for a number of reasons, but for psychiatric purposes, it's often used as an anti-anxiety medication.
And Klonopin.
Yes.
Is hydroxyzine, is that a, strike that. Klonopin, that's a benzodiazepam, right?
That's correct.
And then lamotrigine.
Yep, lamotrigine.
Lamotrigine, sorry.
Yes.
What type of medication is that? Is that a mood stabilizer?
It is, yeah. It's also an anti-seizure medication, but in the psychiatric realm, it's used as a mood stabilizer.
And then we talked about Prozac, that's an SSRI, correct?
Correct.
And what's Remeron?
Also an antidepressant.
So in addition to all of the drugs that I had mentioned, she was also prescribed Remeron, correct?
Correct.
She was also prescribed Seroquel or quetiapine.
Yeah, quetiapine, yes.
Quetiapine, okay. And what is Seroquel?
So Seroquel is an antipsychotic medication.
And she was prescribed, as we already talked, trazodone. Was she also prescribed amitriptyline?
Yes.
What is amitriptyline?
Amitriptyline is one of the older antidepressants. It's a tricyclic antidepressant that can often be used to help with sleep, but also mood.
And Ambien, correct?
Correct.
And Zolpidem.
Yep, Zolpidem is the generic name of Ambien.
Oh, okay. Some of these drugs, they also have what's called a suicide warning or a black box warning. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that means?
Yeah. So in studies that have been done, some of them show that especially after starting an antidepressant, it can increase someone's risk of suicidality. Many of those studies showed that it was mostly in adolescents and young adults, but it can happen in adults as well.
And Celexa was also a drug. Is that an SSRI too?
It is.
And all of these drugs that we just went through were all prescribed from September, end of September till January.
Yes, September 2022.
4-month period.
Yes.
It's an awful lot of drugs to be prescribed in 4 months, isn't it?
Sustained.
That's a good explainer of the drugs Lindsay had been prescribed. And you can decide whether it's an awful amount of drugs to be prescribed in 4 months or not. But I also have to note this point that was made by the Commonwealth.
Doctor, all those drugs that defense counsel just listed, you're aware she wasn't on all of those drugs at the same time, correct?
Correct.
And did you know that many of those drugs she took a very small amount of? Some she didn't take any pills at all?
I was not aware of that.
And just when you thought all of this was over, here comes Kevin Reddington back for recross.
A normal person could have, as counsel said it. How about a person that at the same time can't sleep because the insomnia is so bad they go 48 hours without sleep? Is that something to be considered in the whole evaluation?
Yes.
How about the fact of a person saying that my brain is broken and that they can't concentrate, they can't think? Is that something that the person you would consider in conjunction with the messy garage and the exercise?
Yes.
Thoughts of hurting themselves, suicidal ideation, that's something that's important to evaluate?
Yes.
Homicidal ideation, telling your husband that you're having thoughts about hurting your children, that's something you consider, isn't it?
Yes.
In reference to counsel's comment about just 3 medications that she was on prior to trying to commit suicide, you're not aware of the doctors telling her to discontinue this medication, start a new medication, go on to a different medication, depending on the doctor. You're not aware of that, right?
No.
And finally, if you know, Did she sign a DNR, do not resuscitate?
She asked to the day after the first evaluation that I did of her, which was the capacity assessment to change her healthcare proxy. But in the context of her reporting a serious suicide attempt, we did not change her code status. We continued to chat with her about that, and she ultimately came to the conclusion that it made sense to make sure that her mental health was stable before she considered her code status.
Okay, but her initial reaction or her conversations with you all was that she wanted to have a do not resuscitate status.
Correct.
So what about Lindsay's alleged postpartum psychosis? One doctor testified for the prosecution she didn't see symptoms.
Would it be fair that some of the obvious signs of psychosis would be someone whose thoughts are disorganized, that their thinking isn't linear, that they're not making sense, things like word salad where they're just throwing in words, making sentences that don't make sense?
So you describe symptoms that we can see in people with serious mental illness who have a psychotic disorder with active symptoms.
And you didn't see any of that with Ms. Clancy, is that correct?
Not in that snapshot moment of time.
But again, context is important.
So I saw her, she had only been in the hospital for a day and a half.
Right.
And I hadn't heard about any psychotic delusions
And that's
from anybody.
what you saw, though. I mean, as far as you, like, how often would you see her?
I see. I saw her one time.
Once. Okay. How long were you evaluating her?
Probably because she was intubated, it was very...
just asking how long.
About 20 to 30 minutes.
20 minutes, 30 minutes? And a psychosis, is a psychosis, to your knowledge, something that has to continue, or does it stop?
It absolutely depends on the patient. It depends on their age, how many episodes of psychosis they have had. It depends on the type of psychosis we're seeing. For some people, they can have moments of clarity, absolutely, and for some, it can be more continuous. It really depends on the patient and their illness.
But Lindsay's journals give us a closer look into the alleged psychosis.
Those first few pages, just highlighting page 1, you reviewed these handwritten entries, and at some point in this paragraph, it says, obsessed with his sleep and nap schedule like to the minute. It says, hearing him cry for 1+ hours and not intervening just about killed me. I even said the words, I want to die, to Pat while he was crying. After that, I became obsessed with his sleep and nap schedule like to the minute. That's one of the entries you reviewed and noted.
I would also drive him around for car naps for hours every day, feeling guilty for doing this to my baby. Do you recall making that notation?
Yes.
I also feel guilty we did it too young, parenthesis, 1 week shy of 4 months, end parenthesis, right?
Correct.
You also noted in your report that I also, quote, I also feel like I did it wrong because I did it when he was overtired, so I made it harder. I now have horrible insomnia and anxiety, which is causing depression. I have no appetite. I don't know what's wrong with me. I want help. I want to be well. You saw that in there, didn't you?
Yes.
And then she went on and said, I think the anxiety started after sleep training. Doctor said it was okay to let him cry. I need to get a good night's sleep and take care of him, rocking him to sleep every nap in bed in the middle of the night. She noted that, right?
Yes.
Noting further in separate occasion, he's still a very happy baby despite his sleep training. Why I feel guilty is not really hitting his milestones, not rolling over, although he almost is, exclamation point. And he's babbling, which is a new milestone. She wrote that, right?
Correct.
She wrote, I have crazy brain fog. I feel like I can't make a plan. I can't carry it out. Like I just live moment to moment, waiting for the next nap time. I'm terrified of Cal getting overtired now because I feel I can't help him. She wrote that, right?
Correct.
She then wrote, I'm really worried about going back to work and not being able to function with the brain fog. I feel like I should start with a 4-hour shift and see how I do. I can't tell if I am withdrawing from Ativan and Benadryl, or is this my new baseline? I feel completely disconnected with my baby. I feel like I'm going through the motions every day. She wrote that, right?
Correct.
And there were a number of other entries that you put in your police report about that one of which was that I feel horribly guilty about my marriage. I want to connect with Pat again. I know he needs it. I need it. I'm terrified because I'm terrified of the relationship. She needs to get birth control first. She made reference to her inability to have conjugal relations with her husband, right?
I believe so.
She indicated further on into her travels, I am completely overwhelmed trying to take care of the kids. I'm drowning every day. I feel guilty that I'm spending my family's money and not making any. I feel like I spend way too much. She wrote that, right?
Correct.
I'm terrified of Callan getting sick. He's a sick baby. A sick baby is miserable. He's sick now with a double ear infection, clearly has a bellyache. It's miserable. I feel like the other kids are going to get him sick all winter long.
The journal entries became a point of conversation once again when the Commonwealth called the Clancy's former nanny to the stand.
So we communicated via text a lot. Lindsay also had a notebook in her kitchen that we communicate. She would leave notes for me for the activities or the instructions for me for the day.
And so is this the notebook that you would kind of communicate with her back and forth about Callan and his schedule?
It is.
And fair to say she left you pretty detailed instructions
She did.
on his care.
Yes, she did.
And you were aware that she was very particular about sleep and food and keeping on a schedule, right?
Yes.
And so that's the purpose of this notebook.
Yes.
Again, this goes back to the opening statements and the allegation brought forth by the Commonwealth.
And because no one could take care of her kids the way she wanted them to, she had to take them with her.
Is the Commonwealth alleging Lindsay was such a helicopter parent, no one could parent like she could? That's why she left the nanny those intense notes and directions? It's possible, but on cross, the nanny made a startling revelation.
For example, Thursday, September 29th, it says Callan last fed time, put him down for a nap at 9:35 with a smiley face. We will be home, clean the clothes in the dryer if you get to it, and then Callan up at 10:45, and then some scribbling mark on the bottom. That's an indication of the type of notes that she would leave for you.
Correct.
Would she also leave notes for you to the effect of cutting up sweet potatoes and cutting up celery and things in 1-inch squares so that the kids to eat?
Yes, food prep, yes.
Did you find that to be overbearing or
Well, not at all.
you didn't find that to be controlling, that she was trying to exert a control over you, did you?
Not at all.
Felt that was appropriate for her to tell you about the cutting up of the vegetables and squares and things?
Yes.
The nanny went on to say,
Did you have the occasion to observe her interacting with the children?
I did.
And did you have any concerns about her interacting with the children?
Not at all. She was a wonderful mom.
And at one point, do you recall saying to the trooper, I loved my Lindsay?
I loved my Lindsay.
Yeah.
I don't recall saying that.
Okay, did you?
Do I love Lindsay?
Yeah.
I did love Lindsay, yes.
At this point, my photographer in the courtroom told me the jurors literally took note, writing in their notebooks after the nanny announced that Lindsay was a good mom. And here's where we have to get to the internet discourse. Was Patrick a good dad? Now, I'm not here to make any judgments, but online, we're hearing a lot about Patrick being a bad father or husband. For example, prior to the children's deaths, Lindsay was taken to a mental health facility in Rhode Island. That same day, Patrick made kind of a confusing move.
So, Mr. Clancy, do you remember that day, December 20th of 2022, that she went to that place? How did she get there?
I drove her.
And do you remember dropping her off?
Yeah.
Do you remember what her state of mind was to go there? Was she scared? Was she happy? Was she?
I think she was scared.
Do you remember what you did that day?
I took Dawson skiing.
Some online point out it's a little odd to have a fun day in the snow with your son when your wife is essentially being institutionalized. Others point to the fact that he left for New York in the months leading up to the murders. They speculate that Patrick may have been having an affair.
You mentioned that you went to New York in November of 2022. Defense counsel said that was a month before the children were killed, but that's actually 2 months before they were killed, correct?
It was, it was about a little more than 2 months.
And so when you took your trip to New York, she was having some issues, but she was doing okay, wasn't she?
She was doing much better than she was in December.
Okay. And did you also take another trip with Cora in November?
Yeah, so I did the trip to New York, and as soon as I got back, went to bed, and then the next morning left with Cora.
All of this is unsubstantiated. We don't have necessarily proof on this, but some people point to the fact that Patrick Clancy is remarried to a woman who some say looks a lot like Lindsay just 3.5 years after the deaths. And it's kind of shocking. For example, leading up to this trial, I got this DM from a viewer. It says, "Did you know Patrick Clancy has remarried? And she is my niece and looks just like Lindsay. He is trying to move on with his life." Another commented on one of my video podcasts and wrote, "He married his affair partner shortly after." Now, it's been widely reported that Patrick's new wife is Dr. Rachel Danis, specializing in infertility, living in New York. And a lot of people online are drawing the connection to Patrick's trip to New York ahead of the children's death and the fact that he now lives in New York with his new wife. And to be clear, I also live in Massachusetts, where Patrick lived at the time. Law&Crime is based in New York, so I go to New York a couple times a year for work, and it's relatively close. It's not crazy to make this trip, but on the counter, it's also possible something else is happening here. I mean, if we look at Lindsay's journal entries alone, it's possible her relationship with Patrick was rocky as 2022 came to a close.
And there were a number of other entries that you put in your police report about that. One of which was that I feel horribly guilty about my marriage. I want to connect with Pat again. I know he needs it. I need it. I'm terrified because I'm terrified of the relationship. She needs to get birth control first. She made reference to her inability to have conjugal relations with her husband, right?
I believe so.
Again, just to play devil's advocate here, some couples do take a hot second before getting physical again after a woman gives birth. That's somewhat normal, but it is worth noting that Lindsay discussed all of this, the lack of intimacy, in her journal. And that leads to the wide speculation that Patrick was, in fact, a bad father. Now, I don't know Patrick Clancy. I do not want to make that determination. He's someone who's obviously going through a lot, something none of us can imagine. But just take a look at a couple comments made by viewers. This is an example of one of my recent podcast appearances. It reads, "Hold on, you're telling me that this man is not there every single day of the murder trial for his children?" Which is true. Patrick has only been there on the days he's testified. Otherwise, he hasn't been in the gallery for any of the rest of the trial. And then there's the inconsistency in the security camera video. The day that Lindsay Clancy killed the children, Patrick was sent to CVS to pick up some stool softener for Cora before heading to the 3V restaurant in Plymouth to pick up dinner for him and Lindsay. And here's the security camera video of him inside the CVS. That's where he went first. And you can see Patrick is wearing what appears to be a half zip and then brown boots. When he arrives at the 3V restaurant just a couple minutes later, it appears as though he's wearing different shoes, this time tennis shoes, and a full zip jacket. And people are talking about this. Again, on my same podcast appearance, one person wrote, he wore different shoes and possibly clothes in the surveillance footage at CVS and the restaurant. This same commenter points out her fingerprints weren't found on the murder weapons, which, by the way, is true.
But the bottom line is that you didn't get any fingerprints.
Correct.
And that you could have just said that, right? Just come on the witness stand and say, we didn't get any fingerprints.
Sustained.
But all this together has led some people to ask, I'm wondering if he did it. And I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying there are a lot of questions. For instance, why would Patrick change his clothes? And what was going on in his marriage then and now? Let's bring on today's guest to talk all of this and more. It's TikTok sensation Elena True Crime. Thank you so much for coming on Scandal with us today, Elena. It's so good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you are the one who has the pulse on all of these conspiracy theories, what people have really been latching onto. So I'm just going to start by asking for some insight. What has shocked you the most that you've seen online?
I think what has shocked me the most is the conspiracy theories towards Patrick, or any blame going towards him in terms of what he could have possibly been involved with. I've seen so many different theories with his shoes and all sorts of things that online kind of sleuths are getting into.
Okay, that's such a great point. The shoes are everywhere. And this, we talk about it in our Scandal episode. It's that when he went into CVS, he's wearing what looks like boots. And then when he goes to the 3V restaurant, he looks like he's wearing tennis shoes. And maybe he changed his jacket between all of this. And just the Massachusetts native in me, I'm not a Massachusetts native, the Massachusetts person who lives here now in me is thinking, okay, what if his shoes got wet? Like, what if the boots got wet from the snow and that's why he changed? Like, what are people saying about the shoes and the maybe coat change changing?
They're thinking that it points to some type of guilt in him. But me as well, I live in New York. I've lived in New York my whole entire life. We have terrible winters. So what I think is that he just changed his shoes because of the snow, because they got wet, something similar to what you're thinking. I'm not thinking anything nefarious on Patrick's part.
And I mean, from what I've seen, prosecutors and the defense attorney question him. They talked a little bit about the investigation, and I know investigators did speak with him, but there weren't any charges brought against Patrick. For all I've heard, I don't think Patrick is going to be called again. Do you have any indication that he'd be called again?
No indication that he would be called again. I believe his testimony that he gave in those first couple of days of trial were everything that he was going to give. And I understand that he came off flat. He came off a little emotionless, right? But when I was watching your previous episode of Scandal, you had talked about how your photographer had seen him cry during breaks or had heard the 911 call and called his scream a primal roar. So I think there's a lot that people aren't seeing behind the scenes. We're not able to hear that 911 call and hear the emotion. And I think people are just wondering how he has so little emotion on the stand when talking about something so tragic.
I think that's a great point that a lot of people are saying, why wasn't he breaking down during testimony? He's talking about his children who have allegedly been murdered, at the very least were strangled. The defense isn't even saying that they weren't, they were strangled. And most of the time we just see him with his, responses that are very flat, as you put it, not very emotion impacted. And yet, you're right, my photographer did say he's breaking down at sidebars. He asked to leave during the 911 call. This is very emotional. And something I've seen too, tell me if your viewers have pointed this out. They were questioning why Patrick hasn't been there every single day because, of course, after all of this happened, he came out on that GoFundMe page and said, essentially, Lindsay is my wife. This isn't her. She was having a mental break. That's why this happened. And now, so he showed support, but now he hasn't been in the courtroom. Has anybody been talking about that?
Oh yeah, people are in my DMs. People who don't even follow true crime are calling me, family members. This is getting a really broad viewership, and people find that as guilt, but I truly find it as this has been his life every day since January 24th, 2023. He's told this story to Massachusetts State Police, investigators. I'm sure he's had some type of mental health counseling. That's a guess, but he's lived this every day. So I think when he came to the stand, he was just going to give just facts, right? He's not giving anything more than he needs to. He's not being in the courtroom for Lindsay more than he needs to, because it does seem, in my opinion, there is a bit of anger, right? In the beginning, I saw him I heard him saying, she's my wife. She had a mental break. She was a wonderful person. And on the stand, he said things. He said, Lindsay was a wonderful mother. She started reading to the kids at 3 months. She would bring them to music classes and make up songs for them. And then, he's not in the courtroom every day. And I think that's because he's trying to move on with the part of his life he has left.
And I mean, the people who are the loudest in the comments are the keyboard warriors or the trolls. Everybody has an opinion about it. But when I see these things over and over talking about, why do we care about Patrick's mental health and all of this? I think we do have to take a step back and remember that he is a human in all of this, at the very least, that his 3 children are no longer with us. And that's another critique that I've seen. So when the prosecutors asked him, explain to me, what was Cora like? What was Dawson's personality? What kind of baby was Callan? They went through step by step each kid, and I've seen some flack that he's gotten for saying, oh, Cora was a girly girl, Dawson, he liked Paw Patrol, and Callan's what do you make of that? The fact that he didn't go in depth talking about his kids. Do you think it just was too hard?
Yeah, I think it was too hard, or I think that he is not giving anything more to the prosecution than he needs to. That's my opinion. And even the defense, he's not giving a ton, but I saw him relax a little bit more with the defense, to be perfectly honest, especially with Kevin Reddington. He would thank him for giving him the opportunity to take a moment, take a breath if things got too hard. Whereas the prosecution, he was not answering anything more than what he was asked. So when the prosecution asked him, how was Cora? How was Dawson? He gave them very straight answers, because I don't think he wants to open the door to being asked anything else.
And I think that's fair too, right? I mean, we saw Patrick Clancy immediately after this happened when he made the GoFundMe page. After that, it's been about 3.5 years since the children were killed. He did one interview with the New Yorker and everyone talked about that. But after that, Patrick kind of stepped out of the spotlight. He really tried to live a life in seclusion or kind of be private. And I wonder if that's really what's fueling these rumors, because people have had 3 years of silence from Patrick Clancy. He was literally called by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that he has to testify. So now he does have to open up about his world a little bit. And I'm wondering if that's just getting people going. Like, what was he doing in these past 3 years? I can't believe he got remarried. I mean, that's a huge topic of conversation, right?
A huge topic of conversation, and not to like bring other cases into this, but there is a large distrust of the Massachusetts State Police since the Karen Reed trial. And I think that specifically plays a role in people running with conspiracy theories and people looking to Patrick or looking to how a mother who in every single testimony has been called a wonderful mother, a loving mother. There's not been one negative word said about Lindsay, not from the nanny, not from people in the home every single day, nothing. And even the pediatrician that had all 3 of her kids from the day they were born testified today. Nobody has anything bad to say. She called her a wonderful mother.
And you know what's so crazy is that these, right now at the time of this recording, they've been Commonwealth witnesses. So they've been called by the prosecution, not the defense. And yet, to your point, are saying she's a wonderful mom. She's a great mom. And I know for a fact, because my photographer was in the courtroom, that when this was said on the stand, all the jurors literally started writing in their notes, okay, she's a wonderful mom. They were making note of that. And I think to your point about the Karen Reed, that is such a good comparison here, because specifically when I was there for jury selection, I heard the judge really going hard talking about, okay, you know, there are going to be state police, there are going to be troopers, there are going to be people who are in the official law enforcement capacity that will testify as experts. Are you going to be able to handle that? He was essentially asking jurors. And I kept thinking, what is going on? Why wouldn't you trust a police officer? And then I remembered, oh, we're in Massachusetts where everyone knows Karen Reed. And so I think that's kind of in the back of everyone's mind here, the distrust. I think that's kind of a through line. And people have the distrust in law enforcement. They also have it in Patrick Clancy, because I have to circle back to this. Everyone is talking about this New York trip. Can you talk to me a little bit more about why this happened? This New York trip happened about 2 months before the kids were killed. What do you know about it?
So what I know is that on the stand, Patrick has talked about it as a work trip. Patrick worked for Microsoft, he worked in tech, and he said he would travel a lot prior to COVID, and then after COVID did not travel as much. He takes a 2-night New York trip, and that is after Lindsay started having mental health struggles in September. And his new wife is based out of New York City, so there's a lot of conspiracy coming through whether or not Patrick was going to New York for work or if he was going to work for possibly this woman, right? Because people are seeing photos of them together from 2024, early 2024 approximately. Now, when Patrick came back from New York, he immediately took Cora on a trip to San Diego. So he left Lindsay alone with the kids for an extended period of time, and Kevin Reddington extensively questioned Patrick on this, because he was like, if Lindsay said she was having thoughts of harming herself or harming the children, why would you leave her alone for the kids? Why wouldn't she have done it on a time when she had days to do this, not 30 minutes?
And I do think that the defense is bringing up a great point here, because the crux of their argument is that this was a mental break, that this was a moment of psychosis. And if Patrick was really, truly worried about her, he wouldn't have left to that New York trip. He wouldn't have taken Cora to San Diego. He wouldn't have gone to CVS or 3V restaurant that fateful night in January of 2023. So I really do think that the defense is doing a good job of planting that seed over and over again. But you're right. I've seen comment after comment about people saying, was Patrick Clancy really in New York for work? Was he meeting up with his now wife at the time? And I mean, I can draw those conclusions too, Boston to New York. However, we have to remember New York is like the biggest city in the United States. It's possible that he didn't even yet know her. I don't know the facts of it all. But what are people saying about that? The allegations that he had an affair. Do people hate Patrick Clancy, for lack of a better term?
I think there's a lot of misdirected hate going towards Patrick Clancy right now. And that's a personal opinion. opinion because he is the father of one of the biggest, attempted murder suicides that we've ever seen, right? And in terms since Andrea Yates. And I feel like people are so angry about what happened. These three beautiful children, they're watching the testimony every day and they're directing their hate towards Patrick. They're coming up with conspiracies. They're looking for any little thing to make him seem like, oh my gosh, was he having an affair? Was he doing this? Was he doing that? If I had to give my own personal opinion, I truly think that this was a busy father. I mean, Patrick was 34 at the time his children were murdered. Lindsay was 32. They had 3 kids under the age of 5, both working. I mean, Lindsay was working during her pregnancy. She wasn't working at the time, but they were, both professionals, and they were living this super busy, intense life. And I think that he was doing the best that he could. He said on the stand he hadn't heard of psychosis until Lindsay. He had no idea about postpartum psychosis or any of this stuff. He was just taking her, here and there. And I think he was doing the best he could. But long story short, I think that there's a lot of misdirected hate. People are putting their hatred towards Patrick when really it's just a very emotional situation, right?
Yeah. And talking about the psychosis of it all, I think that is huge. A lot of people didn't really know about it. And I think that that's one of the reasons that this trial has taken off in the way that it has, because so many people want to bring awareness to this, because I believe the statistics are 1 in 4 women experience postpartum depression. 1 in 2,000 experience postpartum psychosis. And while that's obviously more rare, the psychosis, it does happen. And I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people who are trying to be open about it and communicative that this is something that happens to women after they have children. And it's interesting that we've seen so many people point the finger at Patrick. I really haven't seen many people point the finger at Lindsay. A lot of people have a lot of sympathy for her. Have you seen that?
I've seen so much sympathy. Almost everything is sympathy towards Lindsay. You either get one really, really harsh side. You either get people saying, how could you sympathize with this monster? And other people saying, I could have been her. Because people have stories. Nobody tells you before you have a baby that you could have these things. And people see themselves in Lindsay. So there's a lot of support for her, because it does truly seem from the case that is being presented that she had a mental break. It does seem like, even though no physician saying that she had psychosis, she was definitely, in my opinion, a victim of medical malpractice. And just because of that, it doesn't mean that her husband was a monster. Could he have done a better job? 100%. But it just seems like things got really out of control really quickly. Medications were being thrown at a problem, and the problem was only getting worse.
Yeah, and it's easy to talk about this in hindsight, right? To be the Monday morning quarterback. But now that we're seeing all the evidence, I mean, Patrick Clancy, it does seem like he's on Lindsay's side, especially you talked about the medical malpractice. There's that civil suit in all of this where he alleges, they keep talking about a cocktail of different medications that she's been on, which we've heard extensively throughout court. So I wanted to ask you also about the prosecution, because as much hate as I've seen for Patrick Clancy, I've seen so much for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. There was this one TikTok that came up for me, and it was like, good morning. I hope everyone has a great day, except the prosecutors in the Lindsay Clancy case. So what have you been seeing? What's the discourse about the fact that the prosecutors brought 3 murder charges against this woman?
Yeah, the prosecutors are going very hard at creating a narrative that Lindsay was a controlling, manipulative, meticulous type of woman that tried to have this perfect plan, this perfect life, and she couldn't take it anymore because things got so out of control after she had the 3rd baby, and he wasn't going with her perfect plan, that she executed another perfect plan in her sick mind and then killed her 3 children and then didn't succeed in killing herself. That's what they're saying. They thought that she would have no problem with going through with this plan. Now, the prosecution is getting a lot of hate for, people are saying they're anti-woman. They say that these are 2 women going against women, because if anybody should know the mental health struggles that women, I would say most women, not all, but most women have after giving birth, that it should be 2 women. How they're trying to make it seem so much more vicious than it was.
Yeah, it's really hard to separate emotions in this case for people watching it, because all of us have a mother. A lot of us are mothers. We have sympathy for people who are raising kids and going through these mental health struggles. And I do feel like the prosecution is getting a lot of flack here. They're doing their job the best that they can, but they are getting a lot of hate online. And I guess this leads into my last question for you, Elena. What are you seeing? I mean, it really matters what the jury decides, right? They're the ones who are going to decide the fate of Lindsay Clancy. But sometimes what the jury decides does coincide with the court of public opinion. So what are you seeing? Who is winning, so to speak, the defense or the prosecution?
I'm seeing the court of public opinion is saying that the prosecution has no case. That is why they're agreeing to these stipulations that were argued for so heavily in pretrial motions that the Commonwealth would not agree to any stipulations. Well, now that their case isn't going as well as they thought it would be a slam dunk, that this would just be a cut and dry case, that Kevin Reddington is showing all of these, amazing sides of Lindsay. We're getting some great testimony that she was a wonderful mother, that people are saying the prosecution is not doing well and that the defense is doing a very good job at showing the type of person that everybody said Lindsay was, even initially after this happened, and they could not believe this absolute tragedy.
We're still early on in the case. We're still in the Commonwealth case at the time of this recording. So there's still a lot ahead. I mean, this weekend I was hanging out with friends and they were saying, if something happened, I would hire Kevin Reddington. I mean, he's putting on an amazing defense and the prosecution has a lot of evidence and witnesses too. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see. It's really up to the jury in the end. But Elena, thank you so much for coming on. You have such great insight into the pulse of all of this, what everyone's talking about online. So thank you so much for coming on Scandal with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow, we've covered a lot in this episode, and we'll be back next week for even more. Make sure to stick with Law&Crime as we're live streaming the entire Lindsay Clancy trial gavel to gavel, giving you front row courtroom access. And that is where today's episode of Scandal leaves us for now. If you like what you saw and you want to see more or connect with me on social media, you can find me on places like Instagram at Sierra Gillespie. Thanks for watching today's episode of Scandal. As always, I'm your host, Sierra Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.